Hello. Welcome back to another Spy Cam. My name is Marty Strenczewilk. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Splyce. Joining me here today is none other than ODEE of Team Dignitas. ODEE, thanks for being here.
That's all right. Hi, how you doing?
Excellent. Yourself?
Yeah, my eyes are hurting. I've been doing accounts for an hour and a half.
The glorious life of a team owner, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone thinks it's fantastic trips to events and big prize purses, and in reality, sometimes it's spreadsheets and doing laundry for players, right?
Yeah, well, I won't do the laundry anymore, but yeah, spreadsheets.
My favorite is your once a year team house story. You tell that there's always some scrubbing involved from a team owner, right?
Yeah, I think the funniest thing I've done, especially in the LA League of Legends house, was Scara put a duvet in there which exploded, and then no, he put a duvet in the washing machine which exploded, and it was just the fluff hanging out and completely soaked, and it choked up the washing machine. Instead of taking the duvet out and just getting rid of it, he put it in, then put it in the tumble dryer and
Oh
turned it
my
on
God.
and blew that up as well. So I spent 5 hours fixing both of them.
Jeez, yeah. Oh, that's the glorious life of an esports owner. So, for those of you new here, SpyCam is a weekly podcast where we talk to different people in the esports industry, try to lift a little bit of the veil about what goes on behind the scenes, and hopefully there's some of you out there that may be looking at a career in esports, and you can get a little bit of background info on how to find that career there someday. So, if you've never heard of ODEE here, he's one of the probably longest team. Are you the longest owning team owner at this point, or are you just one of?
One of there are a couple that a few years older than me even.
Gotcha. So he's been in the scene far longer than I have. Has far more stories to tell and fantastic tales over a drink. But I'll let ODEE kind of tell a little bit about yourself. So, in the odd chance there's somebody that's never heard of you before, why don't you give like the couple minutes of your background in esports?
So I got into it probably in 1998, late 1998, where I got injured playing soccer. Hurt my knee. I was on crutches at the time, and a game called Duke Nukem came out. And just then the internet really kicked in England, and I found something called Wireplay, which is like a program that you downloaded, which basically allowed you to play against other people on a server and compete against them. So started playing Duke Nukem, got into tournaments at the weekends, started winning the tournaments in Duke Nukem. Then I moved on to Quake 3 when that came out. I was absolutely hooked on that game. Uh, Basically got picked up by a team that were playing CTF, and I played that game for 3.5 years, played for the UK national team in that game. Met a lot of people that actually run esports now through Quake 3, which is quite funny. Discover people like Too Good. I recruited him, so that's my fault. Um,
Very relevant.
yeah, but a lot of the people that run Twitch came from the Quake world, so I know a lot of them. And I just wanted to compete and win stuff. Wasn't making enough money in Quake. Battlefield came along, Battlefield 1942. Loved the game. Um, I wanted to be in the best team in the world, so I set out to do that. Team that I made wasn't quite the best, so we joined another team called Legion Condor, which had Demon in it, the caster from ESL.
Oh, I didn't know you guys went that far back.
Yeah, so he was part of the original Dignitas team, and that team merged with a team called Companix, Swedish team, and that created Dignitas in 2003.
It's interesting hearing that comment about you wanted to be the best at the time, right? And so we're not talking about now where it's you can literally go to a website and find the rankings and listen to Reddit posts. We're talking a period of time when these small lands that are inaccessible to most people, right? So can you talk a little bit about what that world looked like back then to try and be the world's best at any sport?
Well, so just before Dignitas, QuakeCon, there've been a couple of years of QuakeCon, and the guys that from Europe that wanted to get there couldn't afford to go. So I started funding some of them. That's probably the first time that I started doing that myself. So I just wanted to see a European team go beat the Americans at QuakeCon. So I'd help pay for their flights. So that was the first bit. But then with Dignitas, we just wanted to win. I just wanted to win. I had a real job, wife and daughter at the time. I've always been competitive, always wanted to win. Didn't really care about the money. Well, there wasn't that much money then anyway.
Right.
Just wanted to beat the Germans, mouse sports. That's all I wanted to do. So traveling with a Battlefield team is a nightmare because it just wouldn't happen now. Like, we had 14 players in the team.
Oh my lord.
So
It's like World of Warcraft when they try to do rated battlegrounds as a thing, and it's like, how do you coordinate 10 people, you know?
Yeah, so getting that amount of people to a LAN was interesting to say the least, from about 9 different countries. And that's kind of how we started. We didn't start to be a company. We didn't start to make money. It was our hobby. We just wanted to be the best in the world.
And we have that. I think that interesting conundrum right now in esports. If you look across the team landscape of worldwide, no matter what sport it is, I think, and you can certainly feel free to agree or disagree. I see kind of a distinct difference between the teams that are almost content with where they are, the teams that want to be the best, the teams that maybe want to be the best but don't have the resources. Like there's some different tiers, and it's not about who's the better one. It's about maybe their aspirations and the way they structure their team and their goals. The example maybe being someone like Gravity who got in, did their thing, got back out, right? Versus you mentioned Dignitas. Your goal, like, we wanted to be the best. We didn't do this to just make a quick buck. That we were actually competitors. And I saw. I'm trying to remember who it was. I want to say it was the Astralis guys maybe this weekend. One of the teams was competing this weekend, and IM said this exact thing. They're like, look, the money's great, don't get me wrong, but the trophy's all that matters at the end of the day. Like, if you're second, you didn't win the trophy, right? And so it matters a lot at that top competitive end.
Yeah, I think so. It's totally changed now, though, because there is money in it now, so players know that when they're coming in. But still, at that level, you don't become the best by just wanting the money. You have to have that selfish desire to win. If you haven't got that, you're not going to win.
Yeah, there's this interesting period we had early on with some of our teams where we were looking at a couple of our players, and there was one maybe that didn't fit right, so we talked about it, and there was a conversation about how this other guy, they were close, they were friends, and so it's like, well, what do we do if the other guy doesn't want to, it doesn't work out or whatever, and there's this thought, we're still so new, right? We're learning all these things by trial and error in a way as a team. You go, well, that can't, in a way, you have to figure out how to work around those things, because as great as friendships are, and I see this with our LCS team, they were your guys before. They're a great group of friends as well, but you have to be selfish in your Kobe Bryant desire to win, I would say. I think Kobe Bryant's the great example of that.
Yeah, there's things you have to do to just get ahead. And like when I created our UK Battlefield 42 team, I stole 3 of my Quake guys from my Quake team to come with me to play Battlefield. And then even then, once we got going, realizing that one of them wasn't good enough and dumping him along the way, just to get into LCD with Demon and those guys.
Yeah.
And it's like all sports. Like, it's to get to that level, you can't hold someone's hand the whole way. You can have a lot of allies and friends, but it's literally you that ultimately gets you where you're going.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with Thorin about maybe a month back on the show about that clear difference between the people that say they want it and the people who actually want it, and they go out and do. And as I mentioned Kobe Bryant, because I think for our generation right now, he's the most relevant because he's a global icon. He's just getting the last year of his career. He's lasted forever. But Kobe's been very clear over his career, like, winning's number one. That's it. There's nothing more important. And if that means that, this guy who's been in the team 10 years isn't right anymore, then so be it, right? Best friend or not. And I think that's the nature of competitive sports, is it's when you've separated the old, we're playing football in our backyard versus we're now in a major soccer stadium, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'll grab this question from chat since someone asked, how do I become a team owner? Is it easier to create a team as the owner or gather 5 players together under a united brand? That's a I guess I'd say a can of worms question, right? There's a lot of answers to that. Odie, why don't you take it first?
I guess what's better, being punched in the face with your left foot or left fist, or being punched in the face with your right fist? It's not easy to do. That's the thing. Like, even when you get a shitload of money thrown at you, it's still not easy to do and make it work. I've had an ex-pro quite a famous ex-pro come to me and say like, "Odie, I want to be a team owner," and I actually talked him out of it because I just didn't think he'd have not the brains to do it, but I just didn't think that would be a right thing for him right now. I didn't set out to be a team owner; it just kind of happened. I was the eldest in the team, that's why I got put in charge.
Right.
And then we just kind of worked out that this could go somewhere, and we just went with it. And the way that we went with it is not like a team like Immortals right now. Okay, VC funded, pick up all the best players that are already there, and then make a team that's going to be good and go for it. It's totally different to, okay, we just become quite good as a team. How do we get sponsors? How do we get money? What do we do? Where do we go? It's very hard. Like, I wouldn't recommend anyone to go into this lightly.
Yeah, yeah, it's a so I was I'll reference back to TwitchCon. I know you were there as well. There was a panel about, I think it was just an esports panel in general. I don't remember the actual topic. And Raynad was on the panel as the one team owner up there. And one of the guys gets up to the microphone and he said, "I've got this League of Legends team. They're pretty good. It looks like they're going to qualify for Challenger. Do you think that the door has closed for people like me to become team owners? Do you think it's possible for us to work our way in and stuff like that? Especially because obviously this is November when we'd just heard about Immortals and things like that happening, right? So there's a lot of hype around that." And he said, Rainhead, of course, being the ever optimist, I'm being sarcastic, obviously, said, "No, honestly, it's probably not a real viable thing because you've got this ecosystem where all by itself, League of Legends tilts things because of the fact that there's the money Riot puts into the game itself, so that if you're CLG or you're TSM or something like that, they already have a bank built in that you as a new owner doesn't. So if you're going to go after the same talent, and you mentioned the different approaches there, Odie, so that's obviously important, but that is a struggle, right? You don't have sponsorship walking in. They have Intel and Geico and all these major brands. So I think that I'm not saying it as so negatively. You certainly have a lot more years on it, and I'm just starting, so obviously I think it's an exciting prospect, but it is one of the hardest jobs. It's the hardest job I've ever had in my life. The only harder job is being a parent, and you don't get paid for that one. So in fact, you spend a lot of money on that one. I think
Probably why I started the team.
you're like, if I already can be a parent, then I can do this, right?
Yeah.
But I liken it to this. I once heard, so I forget what famous actor said this, but they said, if you don't need to be an actor, not want, if you don't need to be, then you shouldn't be an actor. Like, it needs to be such an innate need in you, same with a writer, director, whatever it is, if any kind of creative thing, that it burns in your blood and it's your passion, whatever, you probably shouldn't do it. And I would say I think that's the same for team owner.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like when I retired as a player, and I was already the team owner, but I was still a player. When I stopped being the player and became the manager, then that was completely different as well, because I'd been in the past managing my peers, and then I kind of took the step up to like, I'm in charge. You have to the separation, and to be honest, the loneliness of being an owner manager.
Yep.
Is something you can't really tell people unless you try it, because you want to be everybody's friend, but you can't be everybody's friend the whole time, and you're going to piss people off, and they're going to piss you off, and that's just life. So
yeah,
it's interesting to say the least.
You once gave me a great piece of advice, and I mean, God, we've only known each other now 4 or 5 months, but we've talked a lot, obviously, and you said it's when to say no or when to stop doing something that's the hardest, right? It's easy to say yes. Yep. It's easy to pick up a new team or enter a new thing or get a new upgrade on something, and we've had those, right? We've had the things where we've had to go, this opportunity, it looks really good. We had one recently. We looked at a certain team and we talked about it and said, should we enter a new game? And in the end, we were like, this is the hardest decision, is to say no. No, we shouldn't do this right now. It's not the right move for us. And even harder when you have to like let people go, or and that in I would say any management job, any ownership, not just ownership, management job is the hardest thing. I mean, I've had to fire people through my last 15 years. I've been a manager, and that sucks.
Yeah, it's things like right recently removing Smitty from the team. It's very rare that I would get involved in team things like that, but it was me that did that. That was on me. Um, and then things like Skara when Skara went, Skara out of the team, and then out of the off to CLG in some way that I won't mention. But things like that, you have to manage all of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Know when to cut teams as well. That's very hard, especially when they've been with you for a long time.
Yeah, I noticed recently there's a lot of movement across a few different games where teams are getting out of games, and consolidating a little bit. Even the big boys, right? Like you look across some of the bigger teams where they might have had 8 teams 2 months ago, and now they have 6, or they might have had four or five players in an individual esport, and now they have 3. And those all fall back on you as the team owner. Even if you don't physically do it, they all fall back on you, right? So.
Yeah, and I think that's just simply a case of the economics of esports right now, and I think the higher cost of actually having teams means that you can't have the smaller teams anymore. So when salaries are inflated too far, it affects the whole ecosystem. Um, I don't think every new team owner looks at the whole ecosystem, but that's to me that's important to know like where's the next set of teams coming from, like where's the next set of talent coming from once the current talent we have moves on, where do we go?
Yep.
So the economics of esports is very fragile still, even though it looks rosy right now, and right now is a pretty good time, but it's still very tough.
It's interesting you said that because I know that one of the things that you and I disagree on, clearly because you have a team and I don't in this, and I've had many opportunities, is Heroes of the Storm. You guys just won Katowice, right?
Yep.
And
So we're
and
European champions.
we've had like 19 Heroes of the Storm team comes to us, and every single time we're not interested, we're not interested, not interested, and that's purely I personally don't think that ecosystem is going to be healthy long term. I think it's too propped up by Blizzard right now, and maybe Blizzard can turn into a Riot type thing and they're able to do that, but I have a hard time believing it. But isn't that interesting? Even right there, you can see the choices we have to make, right? It's not that I didn't have the opportunity. I specifically chose not to, and I'm sure same for you for other games.
Yeah, but this particular game, I honestly think that Blizzard are onto something, and they've got a good thing going with this game, and I think they're just going to invest in it and continue to invest in it. So it was on our like top of the list thing to do in 2015, and we went out and got a team. Wasn't the right team, and we had to wait, and then we waited a long time before we found the team, which is almost well, it's not almost what it is now. We got 2 of that original team still in the lineup, but it's also like the finding the team leader. Like I'm still like coaches are great, but it's not the coaches that you need to find first. It's the people in the team leader, the captain, the guy that's calling. That's the guy you need to find. So we
Yeah.
found a great guy in Bakery.
As soon as you said that, I immediately thought of the big controversy when Sean Garrett stepped down in Cloud9, right? And people go, well, everyone looks to Sean, right? Sean is the guy. So what does the identity of Cloud9 become then? And I find that as we talk about our different teams is no matter what the roster is going to become, that is kind of a first question is who is the identity of the team going to be around, I think some are really obvious out there. Faker is the best example, obviously, right? And so sometimes that makes it easy. Other times it isn't, and that's why certain teams struggle. I'm not going to pick on any particular team, but there might be teams out there in many different esports who have trouble finding their identity despite wealth of talent, right? It's not just about talent.
It's also the how the team gels. The team has to
Oh,
gel
yeah.
perfectly. If it doesn't, then it's never going to win. It's never going to work. You're always going to be changing players. And I'm lucky that we took good advice on the changes that we made on this Heroes team from BlizzCon to now. And then when you listen to the practice after you buy players, bring new players in, and they're laughing and joking and they're on comms all day, rather than like as soon as practice is over they disappear. You got a good team there.
Yeah, there are. I think there's certain indicators you can see for health of a team, and you mentioned a couple of them right there. Is how do they interact outside of the game? Are do they treat practice like a chore? Are they looking forward to getting to the next event? I think that one of the things that I like most about our LCS team is I went to the team house and I watched these guys pull each other, like joke each other, like literally watch the coach come over and pick one up and spin them around, like that kind of stuff, where they're so close to one another that they will physically engage with one another, and not in a negative way. That you can when you can start to see the health with your own eyes or hear it on comms or stuff like that, it's more than the win-loss record, right? And then those are the teams you'll think teams are doing really well, and they implode, and it turns out it's because we didn't know that they may be really skilled players, but they had terrible tension on the team, or they just weren't getting along, or whatever. So.
Yeah, and like that team were fun when I dealt with them when they were traveling Europe last summer. They were fun to deal with.
I can only imagine.
Especially when Nisbeth flew into the UK straight from a holiday in Greece, still drunk. That was amusing, picking him up in the airport.
Oh boy, oh boy. Don't worry, he's of age, folks. He's of age. So, let's talk about some questions people might be curious about. What would you say, especially because you are a traditional esports team and that you came in through, like as a player, built it up. You did what we kind of call the older brand of teams, where it's like, hey, we're a bunch of players, we play a game, we have a team now, we got to figure this shit out, right? What do you think your biggest challenges have been, kind of along the way?
Oh, so many. I think initially working out what we were. So like we September 2003 we started, and then by November 2003 we added Call of Duty when it was small, and also enemy territory, which was small. But those two teams, we were the three best teams in the world at those particular games, and that's how we actually got going. So we found a niche that gave us a lift into esports, because by 2003 most teams were established. Mousesports, SK, Four Kings, they all had the sponsors, they had the Counter-Strike teams, they had the Brood War players. We were never going to afford them because we didn't have any sponsors, and my credit card couldn't handle it anyway. So we decided, okay, like if we're going to do it, let's do it different. So we went out and got a load of top teams in so-called smaller games, because we hated Counter-Strike, we really did, at the time. And we decided, okay, so let's build ourselves up in the reverse. So we'll win a load of stuff in all of these games, and with my marketing experience, do it that way. And that's what we did. And it still took 2 years to even get a sponsor. It took 2 years to get our second sponsor. The whole reason we added the extra teams is because A-Bit Computers approached us and offered us $10,000 a year. So we had $10,000 to go to the BF42.
Woohoo! Big money right there, right?
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck when that happened? I was like, really? What do we have to do? So we went to Germany. We actually went to Germany a month later. We spent, I think, 8,000 of the 10,000 for the year on one trip, and basically the prizes were 8 cases or 10 cases. We didn't even want the cases. We just wanted to beat Mousesports in Germany.
Of course.
And we flew there, beat them, rushed back to the airport. I didn't even get my medal until 2 years ago. But yeah, we beat them. It was just the most horrible LAN ever, because in Germany you can still now, 13 years on, you can smoke indoors. So you imagine like just a big like LAN with like 12 foot of smoke stuck at the top of the ceiling.
Unfortunately, I can imagine that, because I've been in those same kind of circumstances.
Yeah, it was pretty horrible, but we won. Yeah, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's. I was listening to Kevin Knock, I think it was, talking with Jason Lake and a couple other folks, and they were talking about prize pools, and they were saying how exciting $10,000 prize pool would have been, like this amazing feat at one point in time, and now 10,000 isn't even enough to have most tournaments. Like it's like that's it. Yeah, we can't participate unless we're like a tier 3 team, right? So depending on the game, obviously.
Exactly. Like I've been looking at our accounts for the last hour and a half. I can look at our accounts for 2004 prize winnings, 2004, 2005 prize winnings, £370.
That's amazing.
That's what we won. And then The next year was £6,200. It started getting
Yeah, I
going.
think we won that in a single Call of Duty small challenger LAN so far. So, yeah.
This is a cool thing. Like 2005, I'm just looking at my sheet whilst I'm here. Sale of James Harden. So I sold Too Good to Fnatic. £420 we got for him. That was the first transfer we ever did.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
And
pretty.
and nowadays we hear these rumors that are 5 figures, 6 figures, all that kind of stuff for transfers. And let's be honest. If we get to this point of the NBA or NFL or whatever, I mean, that's not out of the question, right? That people start paying. Oh, I'll give you $2 million because I want your Kobe Bryant style player. I want your faker, right?
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Definitely, it's gonna happen.
yeah. There's too much money in the world, especially in entertainment, for it not to happen.
Yeah, well, we've just done our first six-figure deal just recently
Yeah, it's
on a transfer.
it's pretty amazing how because I'm one of those people that I grew up with a ton of traditional sports. I watched NBA, NFL, soccer, tennis, you name it, I watched it, I should say. Okay, and it was just like, oh, someone signed a $40 million contract. You don't even bat an eye at it, right? Like, just of course he did. And we hear somebody like get over in China, for example, when was it Uzi or Uzi or whatever, however you pronounce it, said got that, was it like 1.2 million or something like that? And he wasn't going to play the first 4 games of the season or something like that because I think he was on suspension or something. And we all freak, right? Because obviously that's such a big deal in esports. Yet I bet you we're going to look back in 2 years and that will be what our backups are making or something, So
Yeah, yeah.
it's kind of crazy to think.
But then it makes it even more like it makes it more realistic as well because like I'm sick of hearing like this guy's retired and he's like 21 years old.
Yeah.
The economics, as I said before, are getting better. So what we're going to see from this year onwards is career spans lasting longer because the money's there to pay longer contracts to players.
Yep.
And like in sports, like a basketball player doesn't come in at like 19 years old or 24 when they get drafted. When did they get drafted? What's the average age?
Right now they raised it to 19 being I think or 18 being the lowest because no, LeBron James is the last 18-year-old, so I think 19 is where they're at right now.
Okay, so unless they get injured, they're guaranteed 10 plus years.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that just doesn't happen in esports yet. Although there are players out there that have been playing 10 plus years. It's just that they've never had the money
Yep.
to make a proper living out of it. But that's changing.
It's a thing that we talk about a lot. I'll use the example of my Call of Duty players. We've got 3 18-year-olds. So they're in great shape, right? They're 18. But then they play Call of Duty 12, 14, 16 hours a day. What do you think their hands are going to look like when they're 25? We talk about the idea of we need to start getting some hand health in there. We need to start talking about exercises and taking care of these guys because not just from a financial standpoint, but what do their careers look like? Because all of a sudden they turn into the next Mewtwo King. And so anybody that doesn't know Mewtwo King, maybe the greatest Smash player of all time, the guy will literally just disappear for 2 months at a time because his hands hurt so much he can't play. And that's a travesty as a esports fan. I don't care he's not on my team. I want to watch the all-time greats play. The whole thing that happened with Forgiven last month, we were all like, I saw even you put out the tweet about this, Odie, like that's bad for all of us to see some of the great players not get an opportunity to compete. So
Definitely.
What do you see? I mean, this might kind of relate back to what I was just saying, but maybe you have some different thoughts on it. What's our next great challenge in the industry, or maybe more than one if you have a couple thoughts there?
How we get the IP owners of the games to work together. That's one. How
Totally
we
agree.
create a governing body, if that's even possible.
Right.
I hate the word union. That really annoys me. But we need not a union. We need an organization which looks after teams and their interests. We also need not a union. We need a body that looks after players and their interests. Okay, in America, call it a union, but we don't need unions. We just need something that will look after everybody's interests to keep it
Or even
above board, pretty much.
even not just interest so much as just the fact that there's a coalesced view, right? So you're not talking to 97 different people about 97 different views. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So so I think they're the next biggest challenges. Obviously, money's coming in now. Like there are sports teams buying teams, there are VC companies buying teams. So the money's coming in there, and that's because of the the numbers, and that's because the numbers to come. So that like the Turner TV deal for CS:GO is going to be massive and grow it even more.
Yep.
So challenges for people that have been in that are in esports right now is that that money that's coming in. Like who's throwing that money in and why? What are they after? What are they looking to do? How are they going to look after what we've already built? So there's lots of challenges like that that people just don't think about. It's
Yeah.
it's easy to say, all right, these players and these teams get all this money, but like we're still all ultimately at the beck and call of the IP owners, which is like Blizzard and Riot.
Yeah, yeah. It's so there's an interesting. I bring this up all the time. So anybody that doesn't know American football, the Green Bay Packers, one of the probably the most preeminent franchises, massive fan base. They're publicly owned, meaning you can literally go on the internet and find out how much they make. You can find out where their money comes from. They have to release this in financial reports, and I looked this up for 2014, I believe it was. I don't know if 2015 is available yet. 52% of their revenue, 52%, came just from revenue sharing and broadcast rights, neither of which exists in esports. And broadcast rights, I mean, everybody knows. I mean, I read an article just yesterday that was posted. Jason Lake shared it about kind of where the industry is going, and it referenced how ESPN has something like $7 billion a year just to get broadcast rights to sporting events, right? And we get nothing. There's zero paid for broadcast rights right now. And you have people like Riot and Blizzard and such who go, well, we want our game on all the platforms, so why we don't want to sell it because we want everyone to see it. And then you have people like the team owners going, well, we're throwing away money essentially in that circumstance, right? Because I'm sure Twitch or Google or somebody would pay for that IP, right? It's no different than ESPN paying for tennis or basketball. And then the fact that I shouldn't say never, we'll never have the same level of localization that traditional sports has, in my opinion. I think there is a level of localization. Certainly, I guarantee you have fans because you're UK. I know we have fans because people find out we're from Rochester, New York, and they go, oh, I'm from Western New York. That's my team now, you know? But it's way fewer and further than between than it is for, I'm from Western New York. Not me personally, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I don't really watch American football anymore, but everybody I know is because they're from here, right? And so you have an ingrained level of revenue because those people are going to buy your merch, go to your events, etc.
Yeah, I think we're in reverse to traditional sports in that respect because like esports is global. Watching MLS, for example, people outside of America have only really started to watch that the last few years. And for traditional sport, the way that people now look at television, so everybody uses a program looks on the internet, watches a browser, so I can watch like Australian rules football if I want to in the morning.
Right.
So I think we're in reverse of that. I think we're catching up. I think it will be localized at some point. How long down the line, I don't know. I think probably a really long time, to be perfectly honest. But
yeah,
at the minute, it doesn't matter. What matters for us, like, definitely the broadcast rights for the teams and players, because ultimately that's what's going to pay everything for us. And that's what's going to make the money for whoever's throwing the money into us to keep us going.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the day when sponsors are a nice piece of the puzzle, but nowhere near the most important one, right?
Yeah, it's like the English Premiership. The rights to that were bought for 5.5 or 5.1 billion pounds last year.
Wow. Per year?
I think it's a 3-year deal or something.
Still,
like that.
I mean, that's amazing.
That money hits the football team's accounts next year, and that's a huge amount of money. So if Riot sold the rights to LCS to ESPN, for example, that pays for their league easily.
Right.
Do they want to do that? Probably yes, but how what figure? I couldn't tell you. That'd be up to them.
Yeah, Turner's the right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and at the moment we've only heard of Turner.
Right.
CS:GO. You've heard that you've got MTG buying ESL, so MTG are a big media company.
Yep.
There's only 2 so far that have come in. Wait until the rest come in.
Oh yeah, I mean, just Yahoo coming in and doing streaming is interesting. I find just seeing some of that stuff happen is interesting.
Yeah, and like BSkyB, DirecTV, the Australian networks, South American networks, the
Netflix.
Yeah, all of that stuff. And wait until they all start doing something and working with the developers. At the end of the day, it's the developers are going to make a lot of money,
Since the
which is
VODs of
great.
these will one day be looked at, when we're all like legends and all that kind of stuff. I'm being a little sarcastic here. I'm gonna make a bold prediction that Netflix will be a game changer for our industry. I think at some point Netflix, because they have always been ahead of the curve throughout their history, they find a way to come in big into whether it's buying rights to exclusively broadcast something on there, knowing that there's a massive viewership. I don't know what it is, but I bet they'll be a big game changer for us.
Well, I hope so. That'll be good because I've been watching Netflix for the last 2 days constantly with
Well, have you
House of
ever met
House of
somebody who
Cards.
doesn't? Like that's a thing, right?
Yeah, so we have team accounts. So like the LCS guys watch the team Netflix accounts. Yeah, so if you're watching Netflix, come and sponsor us.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I don't even want sponsor. I want them to come buy broadcast rights. That's where like we said, we don't want to be at the beck and call sponsors, right?
Well, they can sponsor us, but then they can buy the
Oh,
IP.
perfect, perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know the games. That's the thing. Unless we don't make it, we all club together and make our own game.
I don't, that's what would our game be? I mean, we have a lot of shooters and MOBAs at this point.
Hmm.
I have to really think about that one. Well, MLG is doing the paintball match at the major. That's kind of interesting. Maybe that's our next.
Yeah, I can see some cruciate ligaments being snapped and broken.
I know. You mentioned being a retired soccer player. I mean, half our LCS team is our captain of our Counter Strike team. I'm just waiting to hear back. All these guys being like, "Yeah, definitely shouldn't have done that. Broke a thumb, out for 3 months." Right?
Yeah, it's I went to one MLG. It was quite disturbing. The same night I saw Slasher dressed up. I don't know why he was dressed up, but whatever. But he had like hot pants on, and he was running. Oh, it was because of this StarCraft. They have a race. Like the StarCraft players had a race at every MLG event where they actually run round a track. I don't know, bloody would know why it was this. Anyway, Slasher turns up in this bloody hot pants, running towards me, and all his tackle came out.
Oh my God!
One of the most disturbing fucking things I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, and then we went to this running thing, and oh god, I forgot his name. Oh, he's gonna kill me. But anyway, one of the StarCraft players was running around, and I was thinking somebody's gonna fall over in a minute, and he fell over, smashed his arm, cut off all his leg.
Double lift thumb all over again, right?
Yeah, I don't even know how he did that, but anyway, yeah.
Basketball, they said. I mean, that makes sense. People goof around with the sport they don't normally play. I think the most famous for anyone that doesn't know is the Golden State Warriors are so like hot right now, but no one remembers 5 years ago, Monta Ellis riding a freaking moped and ruins. I mean, the dude lost like now millions of dollars, probably cost them championship aspirations.
Yeah.
So
it's well, anyway, a lot of the players now are insured for stuff like that, so they shouldn't be running around.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. The way they took back something like $10 million of his contract because it's like it literally says in here, you're not allowed to do that. We're going to void $10 million and then collect insurance on it. So.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Speaking of media, how would you suggest getting into the broadcasting production side of esports? No, it hasn't already been asked, and I think it's a great question. Broadcasting and media are very different, I would say, so I think they're two separate questions. I don't know if you guys know, I'm a production vet, so I spent 10 years in theater, film, and television, but I was always building shows, producing them. I was a production manager is my main thing. So the thing that I found most successful, and I already see successful with people like we have Novos, who's an old Warcraft tournament organizer who's on our staff, is you just go do. So you find those small events, whether it's Smash in your VG Boot Camp or Base Trade TV in StarCraft, or whatever small things are out there that are making a name for themselves, and just work with them a little bit. Find a way to see if you can, volunteer and learn. People are always looking for volunteers because the second you do, it's all about connections. That's how you get the job that actually pays you a little bit and make a name for yourself. I don't know if I'd have any more. That's kind of what I always go to is just go do it. You have anything beyond that, Odie?
Yeah, it's I'm not an expert on media stuff. Like from us, like we've helped volunteers in Dignitas like go on and do all sorts of stuff. Like there's people that work at Riot, there's people that done all sorts of stuff in esports, Blizzard, just by volunteering. So that's always something that we've advocated. But I don't know. like if you're gonna like doing broadcasting, Twitch is an obvious one to if that's what you want to do. If you want to be behind the scenes broadcasting, I honestly don't know. The closest I got to it was when Demon 2005-6 said, "Oh, did you want to come and shoutcast with me?" I was like, I can't. I swear too much, and that was that.
You know,
So it's
I didn't think of broadcasting that way. You're right. The in front of the camera stuff's a little different. I think you just do it again, right? Make YouTube videos, get on Twitch. It's,
yeah, yeah. It's like I can talk about gaming, I can talk about esports, but when it comes to commentating on games, I just swear that's all I can do. Yeah, sorry.
so Mayweather versus Pacquiao asks Odie if he's ever going to make a new EU Dig team or a UK Premiership team.
Actually looking at this at the minute, it's a case of like, do we have the time to put the effort into it right now? It's definitely on the cards for later in the year.
It's amazing how few people talk about the time. I love that you brought that up because as we were looking at, I'll tell everyone the game we were just looking at was Smite. It was Smite. It's Smite Apocalypse or Roster Apocalypse, what they call it right now, right? So all the Smite teams moving around. So we said, hey, let's look at this game. And it wasn't that Smite. We didn't want to do Smite. Like we like the Smite community. I like that the game is really well supported by High Res, but they're not overly like controlling. I feel like it's a really good relationship, and it's some good things like the skins in the game, etc. And when we looked at it, some of it was just like, we have so much opportunity with our current 6 teams of things we can still do. If I'm going to spend more minutes on something, that's where I should probably spend the minutes, right? Not on another team.
Yep. Yeah, like you can waste time for no reason in esports, and most team owners won't. They don't do like 8-hour days. It'll be 12 minimum. So yeah, it's very tough to keep an eye on things, especially when you got 5 or 6 teams.
Yeah, I find that I don't know if you find the same thing, Odie, but I'll be going through my like weeks or months, and I'll start to realize out of the 6 teams, I feel really connected to a few, and it's different all the time. And the other few, I'm like, I got to get reconnected with those guys because you've been so focused on like right now Counter Strike, obviously with the major for us, right? And like, oh, I haven't talked to the Smash guys, and like, let me get in with them, make sure they're good and stuff like that. You feel kind of the same way?
Yeah, yeah. We always try and keep in touch with all the players, and we got 54 at the minute, I think.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and they're all in different time zones, so it doesn't make it easy.
Tezium asks a really interesting question. I think this is a good one. Is do you have any advice and tips on marketing?
Of esports or
Yeah,
you?
I mean, let's talk about. Yeah, I took it as esports, but you're welcome to take it any way you want.
Just don't bullshit. Like, make it look good.
Yep.
Keep it simple and don't bullshit.
Although bullshit works sometimes. I mean, that HTC campaign, it was purposely bullshit, and or maybe it wasn't purposely, but it worked in a way. That oh, I dropped my phone, HTC, please send me a new one.
Yeah, I think it will always come back and bite you.
12 times a day, an esports athlete was breaking their phone for like 5 months or something like that.
Uh,
So, yeah, no, I don't disagree with you that the authenticness is really important. I was just kind of playing devil's advocate there. There's a very clear, well, you know what? Let's just jump back to CGS, right? Like, part of it was inauthenticness that made it what it was and why it was a failure. At least most people say. I certainly wasn't around for that, but it's like if you don't come across as authentic and real, then the fans know it right away.
at the time, I was looking at the money, I must admit. They were offering me stupid money to do it, and so I did it, and I won it. So yeah, for me, it was good. But at that time, there was nothing else, and that's when the recession hit as well. So it was kind of like a light for Dignitas, in Dignitas terms, it was a lifesaver. Without that LCS money, we would have probably disappeared.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the ebbs and flows of an industry can really do that to a company. I mean, the tech world on a much larger scale is a perfect example of that, right? Where you're talking many more zeros on the ends of that, and you have these little dips and rises during the bubble of '99 or whatever it was, and then the next bubble of what was it, 2010, and it's amazing how like certain companies will thrive off that, and they'll be just in the right spot, right time, whatever, or skate through, like you said, like just barely survive through, and then make it to the other side where things are great, and other ones just gone, right? That's it.
Yeah, most of the threats though that I've seen in the last 15 years, they're made by teams that go too far, and then everybody feels that they have to react to keep with them. And when that happens, that's a dangerous threat for all teams. And I've seen it probably 4 times in the last 15 years, and teams disappear because they feel they have to go with what's there right now, rather than being stable. And stability is more important than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's this I mean, stability and the willingness to reinvest in yourself. Those two things I think are go hand in hand in a way, because by reinvesting, theoretically, you're setting yourself up better to be more stable, as opposed to going, well, we made this money, so we made some money, right? Smart teams go, we made some money, what can we do about this to make our situation better, right? So, got a couple of good questions here too. What are some things you consider when picking up a new player, aspiring League of Legends pro there? ODEE, you're way more experienced at this than I am, so why don't you?
I'll be general. So, from the organization's point of view, it's like, why do we get the game? Why are we picking up this game? Why do we want it? Typical would ring now. Hang on a sec.
When you're a hot demand guy, you can't skip right there.
It wasn't that important, apparently. All right, so it depends what games you want to pick up. When for the top teams, like when they're picking up a new team, they're not going to pick up like a middle of the road team that hasn't got some experience, or they know somebody in that team, or they don't know someone in that team. It's very rare for that to happen. The best way to actually get into esports and get noticed is to just play and compete.
Yep.
Like League of Legends, you got, like, if you're ever going to get noticed for an LCS team, you got to get to Challenger, or near enough there. Once you do the hard work, and the hardest bit is getting to the top. So once you do the hard work and you get to Challenger, then it's a case of being noticed by your peers. The best way into an LCS team is for someone like Shifter to say, "This guy's good. We should try him out."
Yep. Well, look at Fabi right now for our Team Liquid. Anybody that watches North American streams, you'll see Fabi in almost every stream you watch. He's always playing like an incredible amount of games for the last couple of years. I don't even watch that much League of Legends, and I recognize the name as soon as they picked him up on Team Liquid. I don't know the story, but I guarantee that was some part of it. The guys all just knew him really, really well, you know?
Yeah, and it's a case of like, they're not there for by luck. You don't get to that level by being lucky. Like, there are a few one-trick ponies that like might play Lee Sin like 40 million games and get into Challenger, whatever. I played Kog'Maw. I was the #1 played Kog'Maw in the world. I was still shit, but anyway. So, but there's no. It's like me from my career. Like, I went out and made sure that I got noticed. So when I played Quake, I made sure the top players knew who I was. Like, I jumped in their face. I would BM them so they knew my name. To Battlefield, like, just making sure, like, let's play an infantry 4v4. You've all got machine guns. I'll run around with a sniper. I'll get a sniper rifle and still kill you all. Which is what I used to do. So you gotta get noticed. That's another thing. But it's all well and good getting to Challenger in League of Legends, for example, being as good as you can be, getting picked up. It's a whole nother matter coming to an LCS studio, sitting in front of that crowd, or sitting in a stadium and then playing in front of them.
With no ping.
The psychological training not many have had.
Yeah.
And the ones that transition straight in normally have got some kind of sporting background.
That's true. That kind of like, if you played soccer or football or something like that, you've been in front of a crowd. So that's got to help.
Yep. And it's tough. Like, again, like, it's tiny. We'll find a percentage one day. Somebody will work it out. But a tiny percentage of people get to be a pro gamer.
Oh yeah. I mean, everyone will tell you that knows me that I talk a lot about the comparisons to theater, film, and television, traditional entertainment, and it's just like being an actor, right? The professional actors who are the most successful, it's this teensy tiny percentage. And I also I fully believe, and I say this a lot, but I'll repeat it because I think it's important. A lot of it is just their work ethic. It's not that they're the best. You know, some people, like, let's say it was ODEE and I were both competing against each other, and I was actually better than ODEE, like raw skill, but I I wasn't dedicated. I was like, I'll play 4 or 5 hours a day, but I really want to have. I have a girlfriend, and I've got tickets to the season to go see the Mets play or something like that. I don't know. I don't watch baseball. But Odie's like, I'm going to be the best. And mechanically, he's not, maybe he's like 70 or 80% of me, but dude plays 12, 14, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. He's going to crush me at some point. Like, pure effort's going to surpass.
But that happens in Quake 3. I wasn't the best player in Quake 3 aim-wise, but I knew things like I knew for like too good on a map. I know which way he'd go every single map.
Yeah.
I know exactly every little trick that he'd do, and I'd stop it. I remember one of the best things I ever did in Quake was when the Fnatic owner, Sam Matthews, was on a public server, and I was on there under my alias, and he was calling me a cheat. I love that. That was one of my best moments in Quake. Because every shot hit him in the face.
They have to assume you're like, how could you possibly know where I'm going?
But the funny thing was, he was my teammate as well, but he didn't know it was me.
That's amazing. We talked to this last week. I had VLPS on, who's a professional Hearthstone player for us, and I've heard this comment before from a caster in Hearthstone where he said, you have to realize that the players, when they're playing it, though there are hundreds of cards and hundreds of scenarios, and multiplying that out, it's like an insane number of conditions. Pretty much any state on the board, they've been in that exact scenario before. 4, 5, 6 times. Literally those exact cards, exact things leading up to it. And he agreed with that 100%. And he's like, you almost know how it's going to go out because you've already been here. And that's the difference between what you were just talking about, right? Like, you played the crap out of it. So you went, well, 8 out of 9 times he's going to go this direction. So 8 out of 9 times I'm going to get it right. I'm going to get it wrong sometimes, but so often I get it right, they're going to forget the times I get it wrong, right?
Yeah, it's like in Battlefield. There was one particular pixel shot that I'd do on Iwo Jima map that once every 100 shots would work, and basically the enemy team would take off on their plane off their aircraft carrier with everybody on the wings. This one particular shot, if I spawned at the right time, I could get in this def gun, shoot it, hit the plane just as it took off, killed the whole team. But once in a game, we won in 20 seconds.
Beautiful. Love it. We're getting near the end. I like to give people a chance to ask questions, so I'm going to say now, if you have, you guys have been pretty active, but if you have any also less serious questions you want to ask, kind of off the cuff, please feel free. Odie, you want to do any of your shameless plugs, as I call this part of the show?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that this is my first stream since I moved house, so the internet's actually holding. So
all
thanks,
right.
PT, come and sponsor me. Yeah, but no, thanks to all of our sponsors, Corsair, Alienware, WD, of course, Scan. But just thanks to the players, especially the last month, because I've been like pretty AWOL for the 5 weeks. So yeah, my staff, which is like we actually just employed a lot of people in the team, which is invested in ourselves, like we said. So my staff are more than capable of running things whilst I'm doing nothing without the internet, literally.
It's amazing how much you start to go, oh, look, that thing just works, even though I'm not there, right? Isn't that cool?
Yeah, well, there's stuff that we do now which I didn't know we did it, but it just appears. I'm like, oh, look,
I'll throw my shameless plugs. If you've never visited Splyce.gg, please do. We have the largest and most accurate collection of broadcasts in esports. Find something to watch. You can get push notifications to your phone or desktop when it goes live. We also have a topics section which has opinion content by some of the biggest names in esports. Thorin, Lurpus, EG and Control. We recently brought on Red Eye, Paul Chaloner, and Chanman. We got a couple new ones I can't tell you, but we signed some other big names we're really excited about. And then, of course, our pro teams. If you didn't hear, we just made the major, so that's pretty exciting for us. Big milestone for Splyce. So please go follow us on social media, etc. You see it on the screen there. Follow OD on social media, so on and so forth. Time for the fun questions. So you'll love this. We have a football question. What does OD think Arsenal's title chances are this season?
I think they're still alive. It's going to be tough though. I think it's still possible. I bet a lot, and I would actually put 100 quid that we will win the league at the moment, looking at the running.
And I don't even pretend to have any idea where people fall in there right now, because I have not watched even any sports broadcast in probably a year. So it's part of running a team, I guess. When I get to your level where I've got all the staff in place, I feel like I'll have time again. So
need the screen. So I have my work screen here. TV screen to watch sport, mobile
Oh,
screen to watch Twitch up here.
not a bad idea. Of throw back because I'm a basketball fanatic. I'd love to throw some NBA on the side because I love the NBA. And of course, I find out my team is literally dominating. I'm a Spurs fan, and I never get a chance to watch it. So we got another one here. What does Dignitas actually mean? You told me actually earlier, but go ahead and you want to tell?
Yeah, it's a Latin word. It means dignity, prestige, merit, and worth. And that's it. It's a Latin word.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I'll answer the other obvious follow-up was what does Splyce mean? Because I'm sure someone will ask it. We are the idea was that we wanted to bring esports together. So Splyce, like how wires splice together. So we started with information, all the broadcast data. We brought all these writers from different games together to write because that doesn't ever happen pretty much in esports. You know, the Dota people are over here and the League people are over here and the Counter Strike over there. So we really wanted to see a lot more togetherness, which teams do really well, but a lot of our support structure doesn't. Um, we got time for a couple more questions. I don't even know who this person is. I'm sure it's a football player. Is it time for Wenger to go? Am I guessing right?
He's the Arsenal manager.
Ah,
I don't think it's time for him to go, but if he doesn't win anything again, I think he will go.
and I think there's a good. This is a good question here, kind of about our earlier question related to broadcast rights. With regards to broadcast rights, aren't services like Azubu and Twitch getting in there with their exclusivity deals with tournament organizers and teams? And that is definitely the team side. I think is a separate thing. But what are your thoughts on the tournament side? It's not a ton, but it is definitely happening.
Yeah, I think it's happening. Well, it is happening, no doubt about that. I think that's just gonna happen. It'll become more regular. Like, don't forget, Azubu and Twitch are gonna have to be more aggressive, especially if the big media companies come in. You got to ask yourself questions like, why did Blizzard Activision buy MLG?
Yep.
Is it for the event side? Is it for the event side plus the player that they have? And then there's all sorts of interesting questions coming, like would Twitch do a deal with Turner for exclusivity on every event they cover? There's lots of interesting things, and there's just
Right.
a lot of money going to be generated. And at the end of the day, the great thing is the players are finally going to earn a lot of money, which is something that's taken a long time to get to.
Yeah.
For the teams that have just turned up, it's gonna, like, hang on, you didn't play players 2 years ago? No, we didn't. Not many players got played at just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's really accelerating really, really fast.
I am. I have this interesting conversation a lot with players as we're talking and negotiating. There's literally this moment for me where I see it in the future. Like, it's not here yet, but I see it, where it's going to be exciting to like go to one of our stars and be like, let's put more zeros on the end of your paycheck, you know? And
Yeah.
you would think, like, why is that exciting for me? I'm going to pay him more money, because if I'm paying him more money, we're probably making a whole lot more, you know?
Yeah, just watch Jerry Maguire. If you haven't seen Jerry Maguire, the film,
Great movie.
that's kind of I just like that film because that's what players say to us. Show me the money, Odie.
Yep.
and that's what you want to do. So yeah, I think it's looking really, really good, the future.
Yeah. I think that one of the ones you didn't mention that is really important is YouTube hasn't made their plays yet.
Yeah.
They're going to do something eventually, and I think it's going to be big when they do it, because YouTube doesn't do small, right? So maybe they go after Turner. Maybe they do something crazier and get League of Legends, right? Like, can you imagine if all of a sudden you can only watch maybe just one region, maybe LCK or LCS, or I don't know, something. It's only on YouTube. How does that change the landscape? I mean, that could be drastic. And YouTube's got the money, so it's not hard for them to do, right?
Yeah, and then it's from our point of view, it's like, how does that filter down to us?
Yeah, and that's a conversation I think we have internally. I don't know about you guys as a team, but we definitely have internally is what happens when those type of what happens when those type of deals happen? How does that affect the way we operate within that league, right? Because now we're going to have more money in that league. Does that mean theoretically we're going to have our place in the ecosystem is going to change? I mean, the money from Riot, I'm sure I wasn't here when it happened. You were. I'm sure it changed the way you guys operated as a team, right?
Yep. Yeah, well, when that money comes in, the mega money, that's when I dust off my mouse and make sure that Quake's a pro game again.
Love it. ODEE, I'm a big fan of ending on time. We have a couple minutes left. Do you have any last thoughts? Anything you want to throw out there?
No, it's just interesting. It's good to see how well you've done since we bumped into each other that time. Just good luck. The LCS is tough, as you know.
Oh boy, it is.
Both in an interesting position, but just relax.
Well,
That's all you can do.
yeah, thanks, man. And it's you said it best on Twitter one day. I was like a month ago or something. You said what a roller coaster of emotions it is being an owner, and I feel it every single day where you have this great high where you're in first place or something, and then the next day you're like getting beaten by somebody you feel like you could have beaten, and it's just like you ride the emotions
Renegades.
with the player. Well, we took a Counter-Strike loss to AGG, which is our former team, so that's that's really bittersweet. You know.
So then yesterday we won the European Championship in Heroes. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So I've actually ordered a canvas to go in my new office of the team getting their trophy.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, ours is literally the exact same. You have the two different teams you're saying like over that week. We literally went from losing to our old team, AGG, and then qualify for the major. Like that's as seesaw as you can go for a team, right? So, yeah, I think you're right. You got to take the punches and the blows and take them both, right?
Yep. Next game.
Next game. Well, thanks for joining me, Odie. Guys, make sure you hit that follow button. We do this every week. And, of course, follow us on social media. Check out Splyce.gg, team-dignitas.net for checking out what the teams are doing. And hope we'll see you here next week where we talk more about what's going on in the esports industry here at SpyCam. Have a great day.